Hello and welcome back to Mr Carrow Plays FM26. Today we're going to start a new challenge, the Relegation Challenge. Now what that is we sim to the end of the season in the Premier League and we pick the team that is bottom of the league and then we attempt to keep them up. Let's roll the footage. Okay, so we have now loaded up the game and we are about to see who is bottom of the Premier League. Now, like I said, I have simmed ahead. So we've simmed ahead into the last 10 games. Now, like I said, I'm going to pick the team that is bottom of the league and it is looking like maybe Wolves. Okay, so we are going to be Wolves. Now, obviously we look at this table and we're going to look who's top, for example, which is Manchester City. Pretty standard order in regards to who is actually in the table and where you'd expect them to fall. And then we scroll all the way down and like you see the bottom three, Burnley, Leeds and Wolves. Now we're going to be Wolves because they're bottom of the league. Perhaps the weaker of the three perhaps in that argument. But we're going to try and make it work. Now it is worth pointing out there would have been transfers. So we'll have a look at the team once we take control of them and see where we stand. But the important thing is, well, the negative elements, they seem to have lost a lot of games in a row there, but actually we're under 10 points away from Brentford in 17th. So it is not impossible that we can achieve this. Difficult perhaps, but not impossible. Now, I'm going to skip ahead and you'll see me once I have joined Wolves. Okay, so I am now the Wolves manager. What I've done is I've quickly played for a little bit just to get rid of some of the introductory stuff. It probably will throw a little bit at us at some point, but you get the basic principle of what's going on. I wanted to join us at the captain screen so we can see who is captain of our team. And it is a fella called Totti and another one called Andre. Now, we're going to confirm those captains for the time that we're at the club. It's not going to be as relevant as it would be in the long term. And we're going to go over to tactics. One of the things that made me do is select a tactic. And I'm going to explain the logic behind this. Now, obviously, we know that we are in a bad situation. We are bottom of the league. However, we don't want to just play on the defensive. We've got kind of nothing to lose here, right? We don't need to win all of our games, but we do need to win enough to keep us up. So I've gone with a tiki-taka 4-4-3, pretty standard that I've used in many saves before. And we're going to quickly go through our team. Now, people have criticized in the past that I don't necessarily pick a tactic around the squad that I have. And really, that is only simply because in this particular case, we don't have time. I need these players to work. We'll make them work. There'll be players that can fit this formation. Now, we're going to pick a basic team from that, and we're going to do that the quickest way possible. So we've got Sam Johnston in goal. You could have picked really any of those goalkeepers. And typically, I would look to see if there's an age difference, to see if there's any potential. But again, we don't have time or need to worry about that. I'm just going to pick a right wing back there. I'm actually going to change this because I don't want inverted. I want just standard wing back there. And then I'm going to look across to see what other positions we can fill. And we're going to do our centre back. So we're going to pick this dude here. Quite often, the only problem I have when I pick these formations like this is that suddenly you might want to put a player in there. We'll go back and see if that's the case, as well as obviously you want to make sure that you are, in this case, picking your left and right-footed players because you don't want to play them out of position in that sense either. And you can kind of tell that by hovering over and you'll see it says foot. We did pick one wrongly and then we changed our mind in there. And you've got another Bruno in there in our wing back on the left. Now it says insert inside fullback, but again, I'm going to change that to wing back. We may play around with that to be honest, but at the second, that is how I want to set up. And then we've got our Andre in defensive midfield, and he could also play centre mid as well, but Joe Gomez can play in there. And then we're going to play Montari, sorry if I butcher his name in there. Now, people will point out that there's not a lot of logic to what players I'm picking, and that is simply because, to be honest, we're going to play around with this formation as we go, but I want to have a basic idea of the players we want to put in there. So that is what we're going with at the second. I'm going to change that to a centre forward position, and then I'm just going to put the best option we got, which is Larson, which is Crystal Palace player in real life, but in this, the update hasn't happened, so he's still playing for Wolves. Now, when it comes to when it comes to substitutes even, we kind of pick the best of the rest. Now, typically, I filter out the unavailable players by going over to the filter tab, and I don't tend to put a goalkeeper on the bench. Doesn't work out fantastically if people do get injured. But assuming that doesn't happen, then we're all good. Then what I then tend to pick is basically, defenders and wing backs, etc., focusing on the players that can play in the most positions, because what you do not want to happen is that you put a couple of centre backs in there, but you want players that can play on the left and the right if you've got them, or at worst, just have one of each in there. Now, obviously, you're playing in the league that's got 12 substitutes. It's a little easier to do that, but Premier League only has 9, so we have to be a bit conservative to who we're putting in there, and we may leave out better players by accident, and we'll find out along the way. Now, it seems like they have signed some interesting players on loan. I see Ryan Yates being there. I don't know if he's there in real life. I don't believe he is. So that's an interesting thing that's happened since the game started. I'm just going through as quick as I can, picking these. There's not I'm not talking about it necessarily, just because I'm just going through picking the best positions, I believe, to fill those spots. And we've got a couple left to choose. I'm just going to put in a couple of random players in there. The best we've got kind of in terms of striking. I know that Wolves don't necessarily have crazy amount of options in here. And obviously we've taken out some of the players that have either left or they have, they're injured or suspended, as we put out our unavailable players. Now, next thing you're going to see is the starting screen ready for the game. Okay, so as you can see, we are at the match preparation stage, and you can see that our next game is against Aston Villa. Now, I believe that actually may be a rivalry game or rival two teams. I am not sure. We could check, but I don't know how to find the menu very easily, so we won't do that. But you can see if we scroll down, it gives us a prediction. It says we have 31% chance of winning with a 42% chance of losing. So that's not amazing, but it actually isn't terrible. Now, if we go to our Premier League table and see where Aston Villa are, you can see that they are not having the greatest season at 13th, or maybe lower than their expectations would align. So what we're going to do is we are going to play through the game. I'm going to show you the highlights, and then we'll see what the outcome is, and then we'll judge whether we've improved with making a start on our save journey, or whether there's a kind of a lost cause. Let's see what happens. Okay, so we're on the attack. This game wasn't necessarily the most exciting game, but we're on the attack here. Gomez crosses the ball in. Good header, and just missed. I don't actually know how that one didn't go in, to be honest. It kind of looked like it should have, but then we wasted the cross back into the box. So not a bad start, to be honest. That was a good little play there. Just before halftime, Aston Villa on the attack here. Nothing crazy happening. Matt Cash on the ball. Just passes along his defense. Kind of boring football. How can we not fall asleep here watching this? Oh, it's a little bit more across, a little header, a little bit tricks at the back there. A bit risky, but hey-ho. Whatever works. We try and steal it, and we fail to steal it. Obviously, a lack of quality in the press there, but we are trying to put on new ideas. We have no idea how everything's going to work out as yet. Oh, Sancho's already injured, but he's still playing on. Hopefully he falls down and does get injured. No, I'm not really saying that. Yes, I am. Crossing the ball in. Are they going to score here? No, just over the crossbar there by Watkins. Probably actually should have scored. Okay, so we're well into the second half now. Buendia crosses the ball in. Good header away. I'm going to assume there's going to be a secondary cross in here. There is a pass in field. Are we going to get a shot? Hopefully not, for our sake. Matty Cash on here, tends to fire them in from the angle. Crosses a great cross, actually, from the Polish international. And then we clear. Do we clear it? Oh, they hit the post. Do we finally clear? Do we? Yes, we try to. But Bruno plays the ball across his own box. Why not? Oh, it's our corner now. Bruno in, header away. You're going to get a secondary shot here. No, controls it. Does he take a shot? He does. Oh, that actually kind of looked in for a little while there, but unfortunately not. Now that is the end of the game. Big score was 0-0. And actually, to be honest, we had 60% of the ball, so it wasn't actually too bad. It shows that our tactics are working early on, which is fantastic. And in terms of our shots overall, we had 6 compared to their 10, with 3 on target compared to their 6. An expected goal of 0.45 for us and 1.8 for them. So actually, to be honest, that wasn't terrible. There were moments in that game, if you look down here, for example, if we look at the key moments, that actually we were on top for quite significant periods, but we just didn't we didn't get as many highlights. So we didn't, make those count as much as we could. Now, I don't know if there's anywhere I can see the table in here. There is not. But what we'll do is in the last shot before the end of the video, I'll quickly show you the table. We'll talk over what that set does to us now the weekend's fixtures are over, and we'll see where we stand. Okay, so if we look at the table now, you can see one fantastic thing has occurred, which we have gone up a place. Now, the only negative thing that occurred in the weekend that I can tell looking at it, at least I can't remember what Burnley were on prior, but in terms of the relegation teams above us, was that Nottingham Forest now dropped down to 17th because they lost again, and Brentford, by the look of it, won, so they've now jumped up a place. So now we're kind of competing with Nottingham Forest, certainly in this early stage. However, the key element to that is we've gained a place, which is fantastic. Leeds are now bottom. Below us, they've played the same amount of games as us. So it's not like they've got a game in hand. Nottingham Forest, unfortunately, do have a game in hand, so it could be a bit difficult, but we're going to give it our best shot. Now, if you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe. Hit the notification button to see when videos are released. Thank you and goodbye.